All right, khydraa, autrolibertarian. I think Ron Paul is smart, and D4 Sean. I'm going to make a combined video response to all four of you guys. Thanks for your video responses, by the way. I enjoyed them very much. It's actually a good debate. You guys, I think where we differ is, and I mean, forgive me if I'm presumptuous. I can echo a comment you guys made. But I see you guys basing your philosophy upon a single foundation of property rights, whereas I believe that property rights are one pillar in in the in the foundation of rights, one pillar from which rights originate, but not the sole pillar. I also believe in human rights, and among those human rights is freedom from discrimination. So I've got two pillars, and you guys got one pillar, and I can see where you guys have worked out. You guys have a whole theory about how all these rights flow from property, and my point of view is property is not the exclusive source of right, and that sometimes we have a conflict. The property rights conflict with human rights, and I generally opt for humans when it comes to discrimination. Now, discrimination based on race, ethnic origin, disability, gender, stuff of that nature, because it is dehumanizing for someone to be told, I'm sorry, I don't like your race, you can't come in my store. I'm going to sell to the white people or whatever, what have you, but I'm not going to sell to you. Or the reverse, I'm going to sell only to the black people, but not to white people. That is dehumanizing. So I see rights flowing from two sources. You see it from one, and they do conflict. Somebody brought out the interesting point that government jobs may be different in nature because they're, in a sense, public jobs. Um, so I'm just, I believe in private property. I believe it is a very important pillar. My objection to the concept of self-ownership is just that it seems to reduce us to ownership. We're way beyond that. I don't think we just own ourselves. I think we're far more than that. When I say we are ourselves, I mean in full being. I don't mean just in terms of ownership. And I don't think anybody owns anybody. So I don't think it's necessary for us to talk about owning ourselves. In that sense, I think it's irrelevant. Now, no one has the right to own us. That's true, but I don't believe I don't believe we're a piece of property unto ourselves. Is what I mean. I resent being thought of as a piece of property. And I do believe property is the result of this particular stage in our history, that we were once following migrating animals, and property would have killed us. I mean, historically. My emotional response to the Amazing Atheist's video, and I've been a long time subscriber to the Amazing Atheist, and then also I did one to D4 Sean. The passion you hear in that is just abhorrence at the idea of seeing public discrimination again. I mean, I saw those signs, you guys. I mean, I saw those signs. I was around when riots were coming down. I've seen some really, really ugly racism, and it was necessary to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to outlaw that. It was necessary. The Amazing Atheist in his original video said that he thought that prejudice was going to die a natural death. I mean, well, so did the dinosaurs, except it took them about 350 million years. So I mean, it was, people were not going to give up their prejudices. I mean, there were lynchings. I mean, lynchings, you guys. Bombings. I mean, this is recent history, okay? I remember this, recent history. And as you know, there's still a lot of discrimination goes on all the time. And listen, in your home, in your own private residence, hey, that's your own private residence, your domain, all our domains. If we want to not let certain people in our houses, fine, but even that's not absolute. I mean, if we're committing particular crimes, I mean, the police can't get a warrant. I mean, if we kidnap a little girl and we're torturing her, I would hope the police would get a warrant and actually crash into the house. So, I mean, nothing's absolute. I made a comment that I thought that this sort of severe private property focus is actually the mirror image of socialism. In socialism, as you guys know very, very well, socialism doesn't believe in private property at all, really. Everybody Everybody is just subservient to the state, and that's horrible. I don't believe in that at all. But to focus so exclusively on private property and private, particular individual ownership and absolute individualism is just the mirror image of that. I mean, I don't think either one is correct. There's got to be something in the middle. Something. The truth lies somewhere in the mean, as Aristotle used to say, huh? In any event, the passion you heard from me was just the abhorrence. I mean, I'll tell you guys, if we eliminated the anti-discrimination laws, if we repealed those, and we repealed all the labor laws, you would have you'd have industrial war breaking out again because business owners would exploit workers. I mean, the only reason we aren't working, and this includes you guys, for 35 cents an hour, 7 days a week, and having to put our 5-year-old kids to work is because of the labor laws. A lot of people fought for those. A lot of people died for those. Without those, I don't even know where we would be. Anyway, employers would exploit. They will. People go too far, especially if they think they own it. Oh, I have complete, absolute ownership, and I'm doing you a big favor, buddy. I'll pay 35 cents an hour. The free market, quote unquote free market, and I do not believe it's truly free if people are denied access based on race and other factors. The market doesn't correct for those things. Otherwise, it would have corrected. Somewhere between the end of the Civil War and 1964, the market would have corrected. But no, it didn't. It didn't because it became ingrained in society. I mean, just watch some of those old films, man. You'll see the hatred, and you'll see the cops beating people, and you will see hatred, racial hatred. Now that ended, and one of the main reasons is because of the Civil Rights Act. So a lot of what I say is based on history, you guys, and history I have seen, and battles I've fought, though I wasn't on the front lines and a lot of those things. So that's that stuff. What else? So I'm not saying I don't believe in private property. I do believe in private property, but I think human rights are also a second pillar that support our freedoms, and I think a lot of our freedoms flow from just the mutual respect and dignity that we show each other because if people are completely disrespecting you all the time and denying you things and not affording you respect as a human being, you starve. People don't give you jobs, you starve. So you can't get a job, you can't purchase anything that's in the market anyway, and then people won't let you in to purchase. It's terrible. So I'm a firm supporter of anti-discrimination laws and a firm supporter of affirmative action and equal opportunity. And other basic human rights. I do believe we have an obligation to society. I do believe we live in a social fabric, and one part supports another part. So I do believe that we have mutual obligations to one another. Now I'm not sure if that's a third pillar. It's probably a third pillar. I'd have to give it some more thought. But that's a story, and I'm not a fascist either. Somebody thought I was sort of leaning towards fascism, and I haven't read Rousseau in many years. And about the same time I read Locke. And that's a story, you guys. I think I hit most of it. And, on this division where I was calling businesses quasi-public, quasi-private, I was trying to come up with a term that would express that they're not the same sort of rights that you have over the property that's in your own home. I didn't mean to offend anybody or really raise anybody's hackles too much about that. I'm mainly saying, perhaps not a change in the nature of the property, but people just have to follow a different set of laws regarding how they conduct a business. Because when you open a business to the public, it's necessary. It's necessary not to discriminate. It's necessary. It's necessary to follow labor laws, not because they're laws. Not necessarily because they're laws. I mean, it's the right thing to do. Unfortunately, people very rarely do the right thing. And that's why we have all these law books and all these laws and all these regulations, because people just fail to do the right thing. Greed takes over, or the lust for power takes over. And next thing you know, you've got laws and regulations. And, of course, you have to have the police back that stuff up, and it's an unfortunate quality of mankind. So anyway, I've enjoyed talking to you guys, and I got to go follow some migrating animals right now. I'll see you later. Thanks.